Okay, so I'm having one of those days. I taped this whole lesson calling it episode 23. This is not episode 23, it's episode 24 of the question and answer series. So whenever you hear me say 23 from here on, remember, it's episode 24 of the question and answer series. Hello everybody, welcome back into the Colored Gemstone Academy. I am Paul Deasy, your instructor, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul Deasy Gemstones. Well, we are just at the time of this taping 3 subscribers away from achieving 1,800. So I want to thank again each and every one of you who have already subscribed. I really do appreciate it. And if you have not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's free, it doesn't cost you a penny, and I do these lessons for you for absolutely free. Did I say 3 or free? They're free. Anyway, this is episode 23 of the question and answer series, and I really love this part because I get to interact with you guys, and you have a lot of great questions. You're enjoying the lessons, you're learning from them, and that's my goal in doing all of this. So I'm just gonna, you'll see me reading these off camera. I look off camera because it's on my computer. So we have some of our old faithful friends had some questions and comments, and some new ones as well. So without further ado, let's continue our question and answer series with episode 23. And this is from Judy Fry from episode 65, which was on iolite. And she says, I've always loved iolite, and when I first bought it, they called it water sapphire. And I actually made mention of that in my lesson on iolite. And I remember those days. I always found it amusing the way some people at some shopping channels or even jewelry stores described their, why it was called a water sapphire. And in fact, one of the shopping channels, I think it was at HSN at the time, the Home Shopping Network, when one of the hosts was talking about iolite, and he said this grandiose story about how it was called the water sapphire because it looked like a sapphire, was mined near water in alluvial deposits, and I had to keep from laughing out loud. I mean, I don't know where some of these stories come from, but that's absolutely untrue. And those of you that watch the lesson on iolite, I talk about how it's a pleochroic stone. So if you look in one direction, it's going to look a little more blue, another direction maybe a little more purple, and then another direction it'll be clear as water, and that's why they called that the water sapphire, because that wouldn't happen if you had a sapphire and you looked at it at different angles, but in iolite it does. And that's not the only stone where you get a little bit of misinformation. I remember shortly after I got home from the tanzanite mines in Africa, I remember I would hear all the people talking about how, oh, the mines are closing down, there's not going to be any more tanzanite, or that the mines, did you hear the mines flooded and now they're not operating the mines anymore? And finally, I think I was in Las Vegas and talking to a jeweler, and I finally had to stop them and say, stop it. I said, I just got back from Tanzania. The mines are open. In fact, what happens is a mine is a hole in the ground. When it rains, it fills up with water, meaning that it floods, and then they stop mining until it dries out, and then they start mining again. So you have to be careful about all of those stories, but I will always steer you clear. I will give you all the right information I have, especially if I've been to a mine about it. All right, so that's a great one from Judy. We really do appreciate that. Next, we have Chase Simpson, and he says, just found your channel last night. I'm going to Kingman next week. That's fantastic. I mean, it's one of my favorite mines on planet Earth. I'm really glad that you found the channel. I noticed that many of you are really, really into turquoise, because of my top 5 videos of all time, 4 of them are about turquoise. So I guess you like a lot of turquoise. But anyway, when you go out to remember the Kingman mine is just north of Kingman, Arizona, maybe a 10-15 minute drive, and you will see a storefront out there called Cobalt Processing. And if you do run into and meet Josh or Marty Kolba is a dad, Josh is a son, 3rd and 4th generation miners out there in the Kingman mine, tell them I said hi, and give them my regards. Have a great time. That is a great place to visit. And you can buy turquoise right at the mine. there. Okay. Okay, I like this one. This one comes from Denise Miller, and it was from episode, she was watching episode 66, which was last week's Praisiolite lesson. She says, I know that Oregon sunstone is not a very valuable gem, but I've seen beautiful sets in a jewelry store in Sisters, Oregon. Would you consider doing a video about that stone? Thank you. I'm learning so much, but I still have 26 videos in the Academy section to view yet. One day I will catch up. And literally, I was getting ready to answer that question because that was from, I think, 3 days ago. And it takes me a while to get to all of your questions. And then this came in, also from Diane Miller. She said, I knew if I asked a question before I have watched all of the past videos, I would find you have already answered it. I just watched the beginning of episode 43 and learned that you answered my sunstone question in episode 39. Forgive me, I am pedaling as fast as I can given I live off the grid and only have internet connection when I can get my cell phone to deliver. Still, I learn something every time I connect. Thank you for the enjoyable way you teach. Well, it is an absolute pleasure. I'm glad that, and I was going to get to your answer, but I'm glad you got to that. And take your time, enjoy the lessons. This is not a race. New ones are going to keep coming out. If you have any other questions that I haven't answered yet in a lesson, I will get that done for you. Sunstone is a beautiful gemstone. I'm really happy to hear that you guys are enjoying the lessons and learning from them. That's my whole goal. I want to be the biggest free gem classes on YouTube for everybody. All right, I think I'm going to make this the last question this week. And I'm only saying it because this one's a really involved answer, and sometimes I get very long-winded in my answers. That's just my passion about what I do. And so this will be we'll pick up again next week after this one. This is from one of our favorites, Glenna Oro. She lives in Orlando. She's from episode 66, Praisiolite. Says, what a beautiful gemstone. I love the story about baking them on the rooftop. Question, what qualifies a gemstone as rare? I recently saw a photo of copper agate, a copper agate pendant, which was written as a rare copper agate pendant. Is it rare? And by the way, what is copper agate? Could it be considered rare because of its size, shape, or color? I would imagine that Sleeping Beauty turquoise can be described as rare since the mine has closed. Thank you, Glenna. Well, it's good to see that Glenna is still on top of her game. She really comes up with great questions, and I really love when somebody's so interested in ask those great questions, and sometimes I have to unpack a lot to answer the question, and this is no exception. So I actually wrote a reply to Glenna. She's one of our fans that watches our Sunday Fun Days with Paul and Judy on my wife Judy Crowell's website, our Facebook page. So every Sunday, and that was on Father's Day that she asked the question. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about here. The GIA textbook definition of gemstones is that they share three traits: beauty, rarity, and durability. Now, that's a very simplistic answer because even when you go into each of those traits, it's not all cut and dried. Beauty, for example. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You might love a gemstone that I don't care for that much. Conversely, one of my favorite gemstones might be one that you hate or maybe way down on your list. So that is really a personal selection when we're talking about beauty. Durability is a little bit more easy to come by, but some gems are obviously much more durable than others. If you think about jade, for example. Jade is rated exceptional in its toughness scale. That means it's almost impossible to destroy. It's that tough of a gemstone. On the other hand, if you think of something like fluorite, it's considered very fragile. It's also can scratch very, very easily. So again, both would be considered a gemstone, beauty, rarity, durability. But the rarity is the one that I think causes the most confusion. All gems are rare, but how many of them are really what we would consider to be gem quality? You can get, for example, going back in my history, when I was a host on QVC, excuse me, I was selling on the air a sapphire, a 2-carat sapphire in a sterling silver setting. And it was, I believe, $49.99 or $49.95, whatever the price was at that time. And I remember getting, and I think it was a whole hour on sapphires, but I remember getting a call from a viewer that came up on the air. And she said, hey Paul, I just bought the sapphire ring. I'm getting it for my daughter. And how is the color on that sapphire? And my answer was, and it wasn't meant to be a flip answer, it was, it's 2 carats of sapphire, it's set in sterling silver, it's $49.95. This isn't the crown jewels. Now, if you're looking something with exceptional color, I have something later in the hour that's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's 49 bucks for sapphire. It's going to be kind of dark in the color of sapphire. And I think I told Glenna in my answer that was the safest thing that I could say without getting fired from my job as a host at QVC at the time. But anyway, this is a great example of what happens with gemstones. You can find rough sapphire that is not very pretty, and it's not going to be very expensive. You can get probably some rough for $100 or thereabouts. And then you can get a cashmere sapphire that's bona fide from there, and it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars depending upon the size, or sell at auction even for millions of dollars. The gem quality with no inclusions is going to be very, very rare, but some gems are just more rare than others. See if I guess one other thing I'm going to say about this, and then we'll wrap up the lesson for this week. Rarity is not just how rare the gem, let me put it this way, the price. The price of a gem isn't just because of the rarity. It's also because of demand. I sometimes talk about economics in my lessons, and I talk about this law of supply and demand. If you have a lot of people demanding something and not much inventory in it, the price is going to go up. If you have something that there's virtually no demand, even if there's a lot or little of it, it's not going to be as expensive. So a great example I give in this, I already talked about sapphire. You can go from $100 to $1 million or millions of dollars. But there are certain gems out there that I think are flying under the radar that just aren't very expensive. It doesn't mean that they're not rare. Spinel, garnets, great gem quality garnets or spinel, they're some of my favorite gemstones. They don't cost nearly what they should because the demand isn't there that it would be for the so-called precious gems. Rubies, emeralds, sapphires, diamonds are considered to be precious gems. I find gems that are more expensive than them, that are much more rare and much more intriguing, like a black opal from Lightning Ridge. But that's really what you need to understand. And I always say this no matter what gem you're looking for. Oh, and I didn't really finish the explanation. What is copper agate? Well, agate is, of course, that's a part of the quartz family, and agate is usually a banded, bands of color in that agate. When you get into things like petrified wood or things like copper agate, over years and years and years, when that agate is forming, the bands get replaced by deposits of copper over time. And it's still not that expensive of a gem. Copper is not the most expensive precious metal. You're talking about $1 or $2 or $4 a pound versus, how much an ounce for silver, how much an ounce for gold. But there are other replacement, like when I think about the Virgin Valley opals. The Virgin Valley opals were in wood at one time. The wood ends up getting replaced with that black opal material, that silica material. And that's, of course, a very expensive example. But yeah, you're going to get a good copper agate for probably $100 or less, depending on the size of it. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. As I said, my last question always seems to be the most long-winded answer from me. But that's my fault. Well, I'm going to get to as many questions as I can going forward. So remember, every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time is when a new question and answer series will hopefully I'll get to one of your questions and read your name on the air. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.